Hello everyone, my name is Asif Razak and I'm a co-founder at marktechpros.com. And today in this interview session, we have a very special guest. His name is Nigel Willson. Nigel is a global speaker, influencer, and advisor on artificial intelligence, innovations, and technology. He has been ranked among the top AI influencers in the world. He has worked as an ex-European Chief Technology Officer for Microsoft and now an independent voice on artificial intelligence and machine learning. He has an independent artificial intelligence advisory company called Awaken AI, and also co-founder of VNAI, a nonprofit organization promoting the ethical use of AI for the benefit of everyone. Nigel is also an advisory board member, and currently he's working as a chief advisory board member for marktechpost.com. And I would like to welcome you, Nigel, for this interview session.
Thank you, Asif. Yeah, pleasure to be here and good to speak to you.
So starting with the questions, tell us about your experience working as a technology strategist and an ex-CTO in Europe for Microsoft and your current venture, VNAI.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I suppose to kick things off, I've been in the industry, as you said, for kind of great many years now. I spent 20 years at kind of Microsoft. I left just before Christmas. I had a great time at Microsoft, and my last role was CTO for professional services in Europe. So I worked with the big consultancy companies like EY, PwC, Deloitte, and KPMG. And really I was helping them with innovation. So innovation, and a lot of that involved artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I guess the kind of key thing for me in kind of working with them was the fact that it's important to try things, and quite often we kind of come across this fail fast kind of term, and maybe that's not doesn't sound great to some people to fail fast, but maybe it's about learning quickly. So how can we take an idea, see if it's going to run or not, learn quickly from it. If it's not, drop it, move on to the next idea. So there was lots of work around kind of artificial intelligence and machine learning across a number of their advisory platforms. I suppose my key learning really from kind of working with them is they're called the Big Four in advisory kind of globally, and there's all these other professional services companies that kind of really fear them. They fear the fact that they're going to take work away from them. And I think the key learning is that with the advances in cloud and artificial intelligence, that actually small companies can compete. So scaling out through the kind of power of cloud, and scaling down, and in current times maybe even kind of turning off as well, it means they can compete with some of the big players. So I think the cloud and artificial intelligence have really changed the dynamics of the way that kind of companies the way that kind of companies work now. And after I left kind of Microsoft, I left to become co-founder of VNAI, as you say, and VNAI is a not-for-profit organization based we're full of volunteers, and the kind of ethos of the organization really is to kind of help make artificial intelligence information available to everybody, whether that be through kind of education, kids going through kind of high school, all the way through to those people that maybe don't necessarily kind of get a say around artificial intelligence. One of the things when I was working at Microsoft, spent a long time talking about the invisible nature of AI, and it's all around us in all of the products that we use, whether we kind of know it or not. And it's actually making some of that invisibility visible, so we can actually see it, and then we can actually think about whether it's kind of acting on our behalf or not, or whether there's questions that we need to ask of it. So yeah, really excited to be on the new adventure in my life.
Absolutely, that's really great. And my second question would be, where do you see the tech giants like the companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook going towards in AI in the next decade?
Yeah. Okay, so decades is a long time. I think so one of the things I used to kind of be interested in kind of future technologies And people used to say to me, "Are you a futurist?" And I used to say, "No, I'm a part-time futurist, because the future is kind of like here already." So 10 years, it'd be a brave man who kind of makes a guess as to kind of where we're going to be in 10 years' time. But I think, where we're going at the moment, or where those companies are kind of going at the moment, all massively invested in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And they're all looking for kind of more natural ways of kind of interaction with us. So, you see the likes of kind of Amazon with the Alexa devices and kind of voice, but also at Microsoft, we were doing some kind of research into gestures. So, you can use kind of hand gestures in order to kind of drive content on the screen. Mm-hmm. And do things like give a thumbs up, and that would kind of add a like to Facebook if you were looking through your Facebook feed. And I think that where we are with language translation, and where we are with image recognition and kind of voice recognition is quite mature now, thanks to the kind of large data sets we're able to use. I think the one unconquered area still is natural language understanding. And what I mean by that is, was at Microsoft, Satya, who's the CEO, used to talk about, that he would want an AI system to be able to read a book and actually, from that book, work out the plot themes, work out who the characters were and how they were related to each other, and actually look at the nuances in that book in order to be able to kind of talk about it. And we're still a way off from that. And I think further out than that, I would kind of say that, both the likes of kind of Microsoft and Google are all looking at quantum computing. And although, I think for the last 10 years, we've said that, quantum computing is 5 years ago, 5 years away. And it always seems like the next year it's still 5 years away. We are kind of making big inroads into quantum computing. And I think certainly within the next decade, we'll see some major advances in that area. And the amount of compute power that will unlock will be, absolutely amazing. And the kind of benefits from being able to do that, especially from, when we think the situation we're in with the pandemic, things like being able to kind of synthesize new drugs and kind of analyze, vast amounts of data and come up with kind of solutions. I think, quantum computing will be the future for that.
Absolutely, 100% agreed on that point. It's like the way data is being collected and so much of data is here. Definitely the future is very bright with the mobile health and medical industry with AI and everything. Absolutely, that's a great answer. So my next question with that is that with the current advanced machine learning and deep learning research in mind, do you think future pandemics could be targeted and notified earlier than what happened with COVID-19 in the current situation?
So that's a really good question, because I think one of the things that the kind of pandemic has highlighted, that a lot of predictive analytics have just been kind of blown out of the water. So, all those kind of trends that we saw from consumers that we've been looking at for the last probably, 10 years plus, and being able to predict when somebody's going to go to the supermarket and buy ice cream and things like that were just completely kind of thrown away. And I guess, my roundabout way of answering this question is, kind of probably we'll be able to predict it if the any future virus behaves in a similar way to the one that we've seen. Then we'll have historic data that we can kind of analyze to make predictions on. But actually, what happened with kind of COVID-19 is we actually were in a situation that was kind of very new, and there wasn't a lot of data initially to be able to analyze, and I think that's kind of caused a lot of problem for kind of prediction algorithms. In the future, yes, maybe we could predict if an outbreak is going to be similar, but I think always you face the situation if something brand new comes along that you may not be able to kind of get there. And the other thing I would say as well is if we can predict, at what cost would that be? Because through the last few months, lots of countries have done contact tracing, and as part of that, they've been harvesting large amounts of data from people that have got the apps installed on their smartphones or kind of whatever method they've been using. The kind of the theory is, or what they're telling us is, that at the end of this, that data will be got rid of, and we will kind of start all over again if we're in this situation again. So I think part of the challenge that we have is, do we keep that data in order to be able to make predictions into the future, actually at the risk of infringing on people's civil liberties and their privacy? So it's going to be an interesting time, and I guess it's a definite maybe as to whether we'll be able to predict this in the future.
My next question would be, AI seems to be the future for various mitigation strategies for current problems currently available. What are your thoughts on those? Like, how do you see artificial intelligence playing a role in solving problems and helping to find out various mitigation strategies in different industries, including autonomous vehicles, um, factories where workers are working, like image recognition and all those stuff.
Yeah, again, that's a kind of an interesting question. And I guess I would kind of unravel that and sort of say, if you think artificial intelligence is your mitigation strategy, you've probably got the wrong mitigation strategy. Because at the end of the day, what you need to understand is the problem that you're trying to solve, and then whether artificial intelligence is the right tool to kind of help you with that. So I think that it can definitely be a kind of great help to kind of mitigate, some of the issues. And you talked about autonomous vehicles. The kind of challenge that we have is, again, the ethical debate that this kind of brings up. So autonomous vehicles are, a really interesting one, and I'm sure you've heard the kind of trolley bus dilemma, which is, in the situation where you've got an autonomous vehicle kind of going down a road and it comes across a small child and an old person, and it has to go one route or the other, how does it make a decision as to whether it's going to knock one person over or another person over? And so I think we're still a long way off answering some of those questions ethically, about how we're going to be able to solve some of those problems. I think the start point, and again I would kind of draw back to my experience in professional services, always has to be not how can I use artificial intelligence, but what is the problem or what is the outcome that I'm looking to find, and can artificial intelligence provide me with some useful tools in order to be able to help towards that. So it's not a means to an end.
Great. Right. So my next question is, the sky is the limit for artificial intelligence advancements and applications. Do you think it's a hype, or is it the correct time for people to learn at least the basics of artificial intelligence? Example, how Finland has launched free courses for general public and has encouraged its people to learn AI.
Yeah, so I think yes to both of those. So is artificial intelligence overhyped? Definitely. So, one of the things, again, I used to say is, artificial intelligence is overhyped, but it enables you to have a conversation with a lot of organizations. So, we shouldn't kind of knock the hype sometimes. But at the same time, the kind of press get hold of stuff and try and come up with dramatic headlines. And that's a double-edged sword, really. So, that can make people kind of think that artificial intelligence maybe is either this fantastic thing which is going to solve every kind of ill in the world, or they actually think that that the kind of stories are just fantasy and that there's no reality behind it. I think the reality is the artificial intelligence and all of the kind of things that sit underneath it, like machine learning and deep learning, are absolutely creating solutions, but unfortunately there is some kind of hype associated with it. I think your other question was around, is it a good time for people to learn the basics? Absolutely it is, and that's one of the things that the organisation We in AI that I'm part of are very keen to do. So to kind of, as I say, kind of make sure that artificial intelligence and all of the things that it can and can't do are available to the information is available to people so that they can make kind of educated decisions. I think the stuff in Finland is absolutely fantastic. There's an organisation in the US as well called AI for All that are doing kind of similar kind of training exercises, and I guess if I had to say one thing as our hope for the organisation that I'm part of is that we can do a similar sort of thing in the UK for a UK audience. So I think absolutely now is the time to have the conversation. It maybe should have been had before now, but absolutely now is the time to have the kind of conversation and start to learn, understand what it can do, what it can't do, understand the ethical side of stuff, what it means about our privacy and surveillance technology through image recognition and making sure that we've got transparency. Now definitely is the time.
Absolutely, yeah. That's where we are also working. I would like to add a point here, like marktechpost.com is also working. We have data scientists and AI engineers trying to go through the research papers and bring the, like the feeds from there, direct from the research papers, instead of just following various other business websites. We're trying to bring the real knowledge kind of in a very simple language for people to understand the real behavior and advancements in artificial intelligence, what is possible, what is not possible. And we're also trying to start working with free courses and everything. That's we are under process, and it should be live very soon as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great initiative, because one of the challenges, there is fantastic research papers that are being written from academic institutions, and some of them are 20, 30 pages long. And as somebody who's in the industry, I read them and it takes me a long time to kind of read them. So anything that can kind of summarize some of those papers and make the information available to people in a way that it's easy to consume, I think is a great thing. So absolutely well done on that.
Thank you. All right, so that brings up my next question. When we talk about free education in AI for public, do you think it's correct to implement artificial intelligence and machine learning in high school education for kids? What would be your suggestions for the board if they wanted to start AI education, basic education for kids from the beginning, so that when they go into college, they should know what are the options they have, what are the career options they can jump into and make, like good career in the future?
Absolutely, and I know the kind of high school system in the kind of UK and US are slightly different, but I would even kind of argue that earlier than kind of high school. So kind of kids from a very young age should be exposed to this and understand it, and there are easy ways to do it. So there are a number of kind of tools that I've seen that use kind of physical little building blocks that you can put together to start to program. And start to do kind of like different logic sequences. So children that are the age of 4 or 5 can kind of start on some of this stuff. But absolutely, it's essential that we get this into our schools, and not only, and to some extent it is already, but we also need to make sure that the information is up to date. Quite often when you see kind of classes taught in schools or universities, sometimes they can be 12, 18 months or even kind of further behind the kind of current thinking. So it's really important that it's up to date. And the other problem that's massive that kind of has to be talked about are the people when they are interested in school, the demographic of the people that are interested. So it is still predominantly not a diverse field in terms of the split between between the genders. So we're absolutely trying to drive more kind of spread across kind of gender diversity, ethnicity, globalization. All of those kind of things help, but the more diverse a set of people that get involved in it, then the better the actual outcomes from some of the algorithms. And this is the whole kind of AI kind of ethics debate. So and again, one that we should be having in schools. So I think it's absolutely critical that we get this into the schools, that we get up-to-date information in, we get experts in to kind of talk about it, and we talk about the kind of challenges and get kids educated from a really young age.
Yeah, absolutely. So my second last question would be, what advice would you give to the startup CEOs who wanted to use artificial intelligence and machine learning tools in their businesses to improve productivity and efficiency?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one, because I get to see lots of kind of startup companies, and there are very, very many of them that have artificial intelligence somewhere in their mission statement, and some of them that just say that they're an AI startup, and when you actually kind of dive under the covers, that either they aren't, or they didn't understand kind of exactly what they were saying when they said that they were an AI startup. So again, one of my previous points was around kind of understanding the problem that you're trying to solve, and artificial intelligence, like any technology, is a tool to kind of help you. It is not the kind of is not the entire solution. So if you're a startup CEO and you're kind of thinking about what your kind of mission and vision statement is for your organization, absolutely be aware, be up to date of what artificial intelligence can do for you, but also think more about, what is the thing that you're trying to bring to market, what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and then see whether artificial intelligence can be part of that. I think, a lot of startups fail at kind of very early on, from the fact that they've just decided that, they're going to put AI somewhere in their mission statement or in their business proposal, and think that will kind of get them through, and it won't. And I think, maybe once upon a time it did, maybe 18 months, 2 years ago it would, but now what you actually need is you need to be very clear on the kind of business solutions that you're providing, and then say, how artificial intelligence is going to support the solution that you're trying to create.
Great. Yeah. So tell us some of the books that have influenced your thoughts the most, or motivated you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I must admit I'm not a great book person, and when I read for work, there's the kind of obvious stuff. I know kind of Callum Chase quite well, and he wrote a book called The Economic Singularity and then AI Two Singularities, which were all about initially about the economic impact of artificial intelligence on kind of the kind of future of the world. And I think last year or year before, read Max Tegmark's Life 3.0, which was another kind of good book. There are lots of great AI books out there. I think more often what I do if I'm trying to kind of inform myself or keep up to date is I'll look at podcasts, or I'll look at video blogs and video question and answer sessions like this in order to kind of get the latest on things. The one book that I do for the last sort of 4 or 5 years that I've looked at every year is a book by a guy called Rohit Bhargava, and he writes something called The Non-Obvious Trends. I'm always fascinated. So he spends kind of 12 months basically curating information from all of the different articles, and then he writes a book which, as the name suggests, he writes about the non-obvious trends of kind of what he's found over the last 12 months and how that might kind of project out into the future. And I think that's always a good thing to look at, because the kind of if we look at the press and the stuff that's kind of in Twitter and all of those things, a lot of it is quite obvious, and sometimes we miss some of these non-obvious trends. So that would be a recommendation for people if they wanted to kind of look at a book with something different in.
My last question would be, what are your thoughts and views about Martech Post? And to my audience, I would also like to introduce Nigel as our Chief Advisory Board member, and I'm really thankful to him and really happy that he has joined our Advisory Board member, and he's helping us in suggestions and his opinions. And we look forward to working with you, Nigel, for sure in the future as well. And yeah, so what are your thoughts about Martech Post, and do you wanted to give us some suggestion or some thoughts to my audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, firstly, I'm kind of delighted that you kind of asked me to be on your advisory board, and it's an absolute pleasure to be there. And I guess one of the reasons is I've kind of followed the work that you've done for a little while now, and I think we talked about some of the kind of key things just now. So we talked about this kind of ability to we live in a kind of time when people's attention span's very short. So anything that's able to kind of curate and inform people in kind of bite-sized pieces is kind of great. And I know through some of the great work that you do on the website, you pick not only kind of articles that are kind of relevant, but also some of those are a little bit more obscure as well, that kind of people should know about, and have those kind of summaries to them. So I think that side of it, and the website, if people haven't been there, that they should visit and subscribe to, is absolutely great. But I think also the other thing that you were saying around education is kind of key as well. There's a lot of information about artificial intelligence out there, and we talked about the kind of hype. So an informed kind of source to get that information from, and to get the latest information, is kind of really important. And I know that's something that you're kind of working on as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a great website. People should check it out, and I'm absolute pleasure to be kind of part of your team.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for our side as well, Nigel. And I think that concludes the interview questions. And it was great talking to you, Nigel. And we look forward to learning from you and your new startups, works which you are working. And thank you very much. Thank you very much
No,
for taking the
thank you,
time. And
Asif. It's a pleasure. Thanks for your time.